A good evening, Antoinette. Let me just make sure my voice is being heard. Okay, I gotta try and keep it down because I think my parentals are trying to sleep. But I had just watched a video on with Tim Pool. Here it is, since I'm right there, and he talked about how Sargon did. Well, one of the smaller details in the video that he brought up was that Sargon did a political compass test to see where things are. And one of the things I thought I would do is kind of take one of these tests because I have a very differing viewpoint with my family in the sense of, like, my brother always calls me the most left in our family. I don't have the same views. I didn't vote for Trump. Think that I don't think the same way that the rest of my family does. On top of the fact that I have long hair and I for LGBT community and everything. So I want to see where I align and what box my viewpoints put me in. So let's go with that. So Ekin. This is there's page 1-6. Looks like there's going to be about 6 or 7 uh, questions a video or a page. Wow. Consider I'm doing this at that time is off. Yeah, like 10. I'm pretty tired. So all right. Just a few positions to start with concerning was how you see the country and the world. Excuse me. All right. If economic globalism is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. There should be like an in the middle thing instead of just disagree, agree, or strongly agree. Because there's like, to some degree, it could be both. But I'm going to kind of just barely agree with that one, just simply because like the benefit of a large corporation at the same time is beneficial to tons of people, but at the same time you need to be able to serve humanity, and this is in the effects of pollution and environmental destruction that you get into, where companies just steamroll across the environment because they see economic gain over it. So I definitely agree that it should be over humanity than just a corporation. So the world itself is more important than than economic gains of some oil company or some toy company or something. I always support my country whether it was right or wrong. I'm going to disagree with this one because, like, look at a good example is Nazi Germany. With Nazi Germany, you had so many people like that didn't view what Hitler was trying to do as correct. They were just blindly following orders because it was their job, and that caused the lives of so many people. You also have like under Stalin, under certain things where it's just sitting here like people at the end of the line are just following orders. Like soldiers in Iraq are just following orders. Police on the streets are just following orders and doing what they're trained to do. And there's in certain situations you don't really call in that moral high ground. You're just like, there's a person with a gun that's my enemy. Let's get rid of them, and the situation's over. You don't. There's also the fact that once in war, situations get much more complicated. Like my stepdad was over in Iraq and continues to share some of this stuff with me constantly. And usually it's when I do something and he gets a little cranky at me. But anyway, it's sitting here like some of the things he's seen makes him question so many things like in everyday life. And along with other people that come back, they have the PTSD and the awareness that something anytime could go wrong. So it sits there like, what is the right or wrong in these hard situations? So no, I don't think I'd support it blindly, and that's possibly also why I probably wouldn't be fit for the military because I don't blindly follow orders. I like to question things. I like to know the reasoning behind it rather than just be like, do this, do that, or whatever. Oh, that's good. No one chooses his or I'm gonna slightly disagree with this one because yes, you can No one chooses his or her country, but if you choose to stay there, then in some degree you are proud of it. You are proud of what's going on. If you choose to leave, you disagree with its practices, or if you choose to stay, you might not necessarily be able to leave, like the people of North Korea. I guarantee a good portion of them are not proud of where they're situated. Here in America, we have a lot of things to be proud of. We have a diverse population. We have diverse CEOs. We have an extremely wealthy economy despite all the debt and everything that's occurring. And we have so many opportunities. It's great to be proud of it. But at the same time, if you live in a impoverished country, what's there to be proud of besides the work and ethics that you have every day just to survive? You're proud that you're surviving. You are proud of you're more. It's more so the inner proudness. I think anyway that you have. So it's all depends on person to person rather than just good. Like my country's great or my country's bad or whatever, or like my country was never great. My country's never going to be great. Whatever you want to see it as. Like every country goes through its hardships. Every government goes through its hardships. Governments rise and fall. Countries rise and fall. Get taken over. Get reestablished. So on and so forth. So yes, it's okay to be proud of it, but it's not foolish to be proud of it. So because you can choose it, it's just whether or not you're able to get out of there or get yourself to a better spot that you really should do. So yeah, these questions aren't like just black and white answers. And that's the funny part about politics is it's never black and white. Speaking of black and white, race has many superior qualities compared with other races. No, your race, like, like if we were in, I don't know, like early developmental humans, and we were still mostly nomadic tribes and whatnot. Yes, race provided a big factor in survival. Like if you are in Europe, and the reason it's so big with Caucasian is, and like same with certain parts that weren't, like your what's the word? Your native cultures are certain skin colors and whatnot because of the climates they lived in. Like in Africa, especially like sub-Saharan Africa, they have darker skin because of the weather, because of the sun, and it helps protect them from it. Just like with like how with Caucasian, with the North being primarily in the winter, you have a much lighter skin tone. And that's also the same with like the further south you go and the further north you go from the equator, the lighter your skin gets. And skin is just an evolutionary trait which essentially protects you from UV rays or camouflage. And in a way, it's just like the same with how some hairs are white and whatnot, or like how certain foxes in the winter can be white and they can be like a reddish brown in the summer. It's it's just an evolutionary trait that has nothing to do with any superior qualities. It's just a survival of the fittest factor that we really don't need anymore. It's just the pigmentation of your skin. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, both yes and no. Like this is more a sense of in war. In war, yes, the enemy of your enemy is your friend until they end up screwing you over later. The biggest example of this is the Middle East. I actually just watched a two-part document documentary series on history the other night on the war on drugs. That's how President Reagan and Nixon and whatnot felt like um, that's what the Middle East was because they were especially like with the Taliban in Afghanistan and whatnot, they were the enemy of Soviet Russia, which made them America's friend, and they provided tons of weaponry and the biggest actually supply of guns, ammunition, and other supplies in U.S. history, which ended up backfiring towards the mid to late 90s and definitely early 2000s to the point of it just didn't work in the end because America ended up screwing them over just as equally as Soviet Russia was. And there was so much Also, this also had to do with a bunch of other extenuating circumstances, like the drug trade, like opium and whatnot, and how the different terrorist groups were having constant war with each other. So it was always unbalanced. There was always an unbalancing of power. There was always internal fighting. The Middle East has basically all been in civil war since the beginning of civilization. But it's sitting here like the enemy is the enemy of your enemy is your friend until they become your enemy, because you don't have enough common ground to basically be complete and utter allies. You need to try and understand them and help them through which you can, but you can't give them too much leeway. You can't back out of it. You can't be like, okay, we're gonna let you do your thing, but we're not gonna watch you. We're not going, or like you can do something like watch them too much, and then that ends up creating ties. So it's a very thin line that you can walk on with this. And in some cases, like with Japan, with Germany in World War II, they Japan was trying to extend itself, and um, Germany decided to use that as a way to create an ally. But in the end, they ended up screwing them over, and now Japan is now part of our ally in that sense too. So it's again not a black and white issue. It gets the deeper you get into it, the more complicated these things get. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified, yes. Um, you have to think about it like, oh, what was it? It's like there was in Africa, there was a big genocide. I want to say it was in Uganda. No, oh my god. Oh, in Rwanda, like with Hotel Rwanda, the movie and whatnot. You're sitting here like, there are certain circumstances where you need to step in. Um, you need to step in, and even if it's against like UN policies, if it's again against international law, sometimes you have to do things to stop a larger threat. Like we easily could have prevented so many things and so many casualties and so much death and violence with certain things, but at the same time, does that in itself create other problems, like with U.S. drone striking in the Middle East and whatnot, and getting rid of drug cartels or whatever? It's like, do you just create more problems by getting rid of that centralized problems? Because one of the things in that documentary that I mentioned a minute ago is that by getting rid of one cartel leader, you can pop up hundreds more. You can get so many people that want to chomp at the bit because humanity is greedy. Humanity wants the power. And in some of us, that thirst is bigger than others. So, are you just creating an avenue for other people to expand? Are you creating an avenue for people to take advantage of the situation? Because it's still not going to be balanced and whatnot. And the planet's never really balanced in terms of politics and whatnot. So it's just sitting here like, yes, I can understand it in some cases, especially with genocide, it can. But in other situations, it's probably best to leave it alone and step in as it gets worse and try and prevent it from getting completely catastrophic. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I'm going to say strongly disagree on that because information is always important. It's the biggest weapon we have. It is the best thing we have. Because the more information you have, the more power, in a sense, you have, and the more you can prevent things. Like you can try and stop history from repeating itself, because that's what it will always do. And you need to try and stop things from happening again, or you need to advance society. You need to not ignore the facts if it benefits you, because if, like I said, with the companies and whatnot, corporations, if they just steamroll everything without the information of what happens, then it's going to be catastrophic. But then with entertainment, that's always going to be a thing. I don't think that like it does create a little worrisome boundary point to the point where you don't like with fake news and whatnot. You don't know what's just there to bring in clicks, and you don't know what's there to, but what's there to kind of lie to your face, and what's more entertainment than information. And that's something that's kind of discernible. That's actually very easily discernible. The more you look at these articles, like you can easily tell celeb drama isn't really information; it's just entertainment. You can tell that like certain things are much more information than they are entertainment. They have the entertainment qualities. I don't think it's a bad thing. And it's information all and entertainment have always been fused. Look at Greek plays. Look at any anything from playwrights, from artisans, from anything. Not artisans, just artists themselves. Like information and art and entertainment have always been one and the same. There's never really been a separation. It's just been a difference in how we tell things. It's been a difference in the the way we get that information out. Like look through song and dance, it's the transfer of information while keeping you attracted to it. Like if you listen to rap lyrics, especially in the mid to late '80s and early '90s, they were getting information out. That's the whole reason NWA became so popular is because they were speaking out against um, horrific crimes that were being committed against them by law enforcement, and the fact that it was still very much getting out of that discriminatory period, that it was still relevant in so many minds, especially those who weren't at the age of retirement yet. Much of your older population that was in government, was in power, still had that discriminatory mindset. We're seeing that again today, but those people are much older and are getting to the age of retiring or dying, just not sure what's going to happen first. And it's always going to be that way. You're never going to be completely out of the blue with that. You're always going to have some sort of discrimination. It's kind of part of human nature, but it's kind of not. It's the sense of like with we are very territorial. That's why we've created property lines, why we have fences, why we have guns to protect our property and whatnot. So I'm getting off topic with this one. So we're just going to go on to the next page and see if it pops up again. All right. Sorry, my internet's not the best, so we'll see what happens. Okay. There. Oh, that went quicker than I thought. All right. Ooh, here we go. Now we're going to get into the economy, not the FT. What's the? I'm going to Google that really quick just so I understand what that is. FTN. Oh, it's a shareholder index. Okay, it's about the market. Okay. People ultimately are more divided by class than nationality. This is definitely a big point here. Is because in society, especially the more complex societies, you have a very big distinction in class system. And there's always been one. Like from Greek times, you had the oh god, what were they called? Like the plebeian. No, that's Roman. Oh god, like but I'll go with Roman. Like you had your plebeians, you had your oh god, why can I not remember terms? Oh boy, but if you understand Greek culture, you know what I'm talking about. You have the different class systems. Like even in through medieval times, you had slaves, you had God, why can I not remember classes? Here, I'm just gonna Google it really quick. Classes, since I have the internet available to me. So in ancient Greek, here we go. Oh yeah, that's actually a very good one. I'll try and remember to post this link. So you had ancient Greek social hierarchy, which is so you had in the Athenians, the Medics. Okay, so you had various. You've always had these. Let's go to. I want to have a word for these, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. Hierarchy, not our spacey. So this is what pretty much what the feudal system, the peasants, lords, noblemen, king, and then you had like in Japan you have your farmers, your samurai, your kings, your religious leaders, so on and so forth, and that's throughout society. You have these differences, so you easily get more division with class than you do with nationality. Because with nationality, yes, throughout time period, this is more of a old time factor than a new world factor. In the sense with olden times, like your nationality was a big definitive factor because it wasn't a giant melting pot. You didn't have many mixed race people. You didn't really have too much intercultural dialogue outside of trading and whatnot. So you didn't really um, see cultures mix up until oh, probably discovering the New World with America and whatnot. You didn't really have that huge mixing of culture. You didn't throw everyone together up until like Europe decided to start invading everywhere, and that's the same with China decide or not China, just different Asian countries trying to invade everywhere they could. Like um, so that's the big thing, and so your nationality really in today's society isn't a big factor in where you sit. At least in my viewpoint, like there are definitely some people where like in stereotypically speaking, if you're Asian, you either run like a Chinese restaurant or a liquor store. If you're Middle Eastern, you basically I don't know what a stereotypical Middle Eastern job is. 'Cause I see them everywhere. They also run a lot of liquor stores. Huh, never really thought about that. And then so on and so forth. Like your white people, or like your bankers, your businessmen, and like stereotypical like old school movies and whatnot. Like look at South Park. They are very great at stereotyping people because of it's funny. Um, Stereotypes for me are just a way to laugh at mistakes we've made. At the way if you fit a stereotype, it's freaking hilarious. Um, and whatnot. Not saying everyone does because obviously today your nationality really doesn't matter in the scheme of things. It only matters if you make it matter. So, and that's really truthful. Like it's kind of being divided more and more now, like with Black Lives Matter and Black YouTube. Everything has to be about race today, but overall, it really doesn't matter. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. All right, this is where in economics it gets really complicated because with unemployment, it's always kind of a bad thing in the sense of, especially with as cities are sprawling out more, it's harder and harder to find those ways to make money outside of being employed by somewhere, especially because the IRS, any dime you receive, any penny you receive has to get tracked by them. So it's kind of sitting here like they are very tied to each other because if you control unemployment, inflation goes up. If you control unemployment, there's really no inflation. No, God, I'm. This is why I should have covered this more in should have covered this more in my economics class. But from my viewpoint, like if you control unemployment by giving more by making more jobs, then that's good. But if you try and control it by raising the minimum wage or by raising wages overall, you're going to have to. not just for the guy that gets paid $9 to flip burgers. You're gonna have to raise the wage of their manager. You're gonna have to get raise the wage of everyone and so forth, so that people can afford to, like, especially like a small restaurant owner. They're gonna have to, with inflation, like if your state all of a sudden went from like $8, which was around where Colorado was before the fight for 15, to all of a sudden $12 to $15 within a period of a couple years, then they're struggling. Like, especially your smaller businesses are struggling to keep afloat because a lot of them already run on. I'm going to agree to this, by the way. Already run on low profits because they basically have to pay for the upkeep of, let's say it's a bar. They have to pay for the upkeep of their bar, which means inventory, maintenance, rent, um, their liquor license, electricity, water, employees, which, depending on the size of it, like the one I worked at when I was like 15 to 16? No, I was 15. 'Cause, yeah, this was sophomore year high school? I don't know. There was probably like 5 or 6 people within the kitchen itself. They had 4 or 5 waiters, waiters and waitresses, plus 4 or 5 managers, and then the owner and his wife, that were pretty much running the place. And so that's a lot of money just in terms of paying people. And obviously, the managers don't get paid the same as what I got paid, and whatnot. So, in order to pay for the increase. So at $9 an hour, say to keep someone running at $9 an hour, you're going to basically have to at least make $10 to pay them, and that's a very, very low ball. It's probably closer to $100, $200 at minimum. I'm probably still even low balling at that. Because at $9 an hour, at the end of the night, if you work a average 8-hour shift, you're going to be paying upwards of $100 a night to pay them, and so at $100 a night for about 10 employees, you're easily going to have to make $1,000 each night just to pay your employees. So if you get, obviously restaurants make a lot more in a night, but that's just the base pay. You're not That's again not including the managers. That's not including the owner's own personal expenses for his house, for his living environment. He needs to be able to pay for his stuff just as much as he needs to be able to pay for everything at the bar. With inflation, the more inflation goes up, the higher unemployment rate's going to be, especially because now with a technological age, um, you are going to you're going to have more people being replaced by robots. And that was a big key thing with movies like Willy Wonka, with things like Wally and whatnot. Is you're like, eventually people will be replaced by robots. Your more monotonous jobs that you don't need a person for, like your some certain factory jobs, um, the need to have a cashier, the need for even eventually probably valet parking is going to be a job that you don't need a human for. And you're already seeing that with like McDonald's is rolling out. I think it was 25 million kiosks. No, 25,000. I don't remember the number. It was 25 with some amount of zeros attached to it. Number of kiosks to replace cashiers, because you just need to tap like a few things on the on the computer, and the customer will get the order, and whoever makes it in the back will make it in the back. And over time, that kiosk is going to cost a lot less than paying some high school kid 9, $10 an hour, and even 15, $20 an hour. You don't need that person anymore, and so that's going to increase unemployment. And they're going to, like, obviously it's going to create other jobs on the other end, because you're going to need a maintenance. You're going to need to have coding, you're going to need to have everything on the opposite side of the spectrum, but that's not going to create any more low-level jobs for people. You still need some sort of education to be able to get those jobs. Whether it's at a 4-year school, 8-year school, whatever, or if it's just at a technical college or something, or just even just through getting certain types of training on job or whatever. You still need some sort of education to get those jobs. You can't just be thrown into it and expect to know everything. So some of these jobs are definitely like the more you control inflation, the more incentive it is for companies to find cheaper ways of getting the job done. So by controlling inflation, in a sense, you are controlling unemployment because you can't do one without controlling the other. So to get unemployment done, you need to get more jobs out there. And you need to get, especially those low level jobs, those introductory jobs, so people can have a career from the time they're able to start working to when they retire, whenever that is. Because you can't just expect somebody to make a living on minimum wage for the rest of their life. That's that's not what minimum wage really is. It's at least not today. In the beginning, easily, minimum wage was the minimum living wage. That's what it was designed for. It's evolved over the times, and in a sense, you cannot live on minimum wage now without screwing up the whole system. Because if you need to, because I think it's something along the lines of the average wage you need in Colorado to be able to afford a 1 bedroom apartment in Denver is roughly $22 to $23. And sitting there, like that minimum wage is not reasonable with inflation because that $22 to $23 is more than an EMT is making. An EMT is making maybe $10 to $15 depending on where they are and depending on their level of experience, so on and so forth. You can't just raise the wage and hope it gets rid of unemployment. That's not going to help. You also need to create more incentives to get people to want to move up, to get people to want to get those better jobs. You can't like people shouldn't expect to live on minimum wage their entire life, and they really shouldn't. They should move up in their careers. They should move up to the best possible way for them, and there are avenues for that. Every company has them. Just whether or not you're going to take the bit. And some people just don't want jobs. There are plenty of them out there, and there's also like the reason I don't give money to panhandlers. Like if I have extra food or drinks or something in my car, I will give them that over money. I do not give money to panhandlers because one, you don't know if they're truly homeless. When I'm out in the public, I kind of assume the worst of people because that's is what can keep you safe in the streets. You assume people are going to do something bad, and that's why when you're driving, you don't just pay attention to what you're doing. You pay attention to what everyone else is doing so you don't get in a car accident. And that's the same thing with like anything else. So with that, you some people there are evidence and articles all the time of people making far more money on panhandling than they ever would at a minimum wage job or even at a higher level position depending on where you're at. So no, I don't think controlling unemployment is going to help more than controlling inflation because if you control the inflation, you control unemployment. If you just focus on unemployment and you're going to increase it more than diminish it, at least with the way they're working things now and how I see it now. If it changes in the future, I'll gladly go back on this. But as of right now, you need to control inflation to control unemployment, but you also need to get more jobs out there so there's lower unemployment. So that's where I sit on that position. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect them, they require strongly agree on this. And this is the one problem about having a businessman in office right now, is because that dollar is more important than that tree. And it's sitting here like you need the regulations to keep the ecosystem going, to keep the environment going, to keep the globe how it is. And this is like all evidence points, at least evidence I've seen, points to we do have a global impact on the environment. We have a global impact on the climate. Like, yes, climate is always, this is probably going to come up again as well, but the climate is always changing, yes, but at the same time, we do have enough influence to a point where things aren't where they should be. It's kind of the butterfly effect, except on an extreme level. But back to with corporations and controlling the environment. If we don't, like, I've seen, like, with certain, like, with there's a article a few years ago I saw about logging companies, how they were going through the Amazon forest and just taking acres upon acres of land, and and they'll even do it illegally just to make a profit. And they don't replant the trees. They don't keep the environment how it is. And that's also like with oil companies. There are cases where they cover up an oil spill, or like with mining, how they don't properly secure a mine, whether before or after, and sometimes they didn't know about it like in the beginning. They didn't know about some of these environmental effects. But since we know about the environmental effects, we need to do everything physically possible to decrease them, to protect that environment. Because if we don't have the environment, we don't have anything. Because without the way the world works, without the natural way of life, we don't have a way to survive. We can't just get rid of all that. That's why we need to decrease production of stuff we do not need. We also need to decrease production of stuff we do need, but still produce it as at a sustainable level, and not just for people and the animals that they feed and whatnot, but for just the environment as a whole. Because there is something, I think it's like 100. It's no. Here, I'll look this up. How many cows are there? I'm just clicking on the first one for a quick thing. There's how many chickens? That's okay then. That's not what I need. The numbers. Let's go to. Does this actually bring me to the USDA site? Or is this? No, that's just. Okay, we're gonna go with these numbers, whether they're accurate or not. We're just gonna use them for an example. I'll look up eventually if they're accurate, maybe. But okay, so if there's 35 million cattle, I highly doubt we need that much cattle. We don't need that many pigs. We don't need that many chickens. And so it's sitting here like a lot of different numbers there. That's 9 billion chickens. Jesus. So there are a lot of animals per person. We don't need that level because a lot of that goes to waste. Like if we go and get an animal and we consume everything possible on that animal without wasting it, that's good. But 9 times out of 10, you throw food away at home. There's always leftovers that get forgotten about, that don't get eaten. Like if we eat everything we buy, then we're set. But the problem is we are in a very waste like waste go lucky area. We will we don't use every part of the animal. We don't use everything we buy. The waste waste is such a huge business because people waste so much. We don't recycle. We don't reuse. We don't um, compost. We don't find ways to stop it. We just create more and more waste. That's why we have that big revolving island of trash in the middle of the Pacific. So we need. I cannot trust a corporation to help the environment because corporations, in of themselves, whether it's at base level, CEO level, or whatever, are greedy. All they care about is how much they make. They care about that quota. They care about the money more than they care about anything else. In some cases, even more than they care about the people that work for them. So, yes, we need that regulation. We need to regulate companies. So, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. fundamentally good idea. Okay, so from my understanding of this quote is basically perform to the best of your ability and get what you need, get what you need and maybe a little bit more just so you can be set. Which is, let me Google this just to be 100% sure what this is actually talking about. Um, oh, it's from. Hey. We're just gonna go into this a little bit more, just so I can understand this a bit more. Okay, it is in a sense a good quote because if you make sure everybody has what they need and if everybody performs to the best of their ability, society in a sense will survive. It will continue on, and we've gotten to the point where it's not just survival of the fittest because people have to pull others up. People have to work past what they do. In society, part of it's greed, part of it's helping others, part of it's just basic necessity for some. And if we provide enough to for each person on the planet, because we have more than enough food just in America to supply food for every person. I think it's for like a week. Current production rates, we can just by American standards feed every person in America. At least from my last understanding, last time I checked. Especially with 9 billion chickens. Good God. Anyway, um, that number is just like holy crap. Anyway, like it's a good idea, but it's also a very, very flawed because of human nature. And the reason it's flawed because of human nature is, like I said earlier, people can be greedy. We have a naturalistic instinct for territorial. We want more. We want what our neighbor has. We want what the guy across the street, down the street, across town, across the state, across the country. We want what they have. We want more. We are greedy, greedy people. The idea of communism on paper is not that terrible idea. The idea of Marxism on paper isn't entirely bad, but there are definitely flaws. And there's flaws in every kind of government ideal. There's flaws with everything because we don't have a perfect system figured out, and until the day we do, well, we'll just find out. But it's like if everyone performs to the best ability without relying on others, um, without being lazy. Like if there are people that are more than happy to just live off welfare for the rest of their life because they've figured out the system, they figured out they can, and they will. If we don't have them rely on welfare, then no, they shouldn't rely on welfare. They need to be able to perform to the best of their ability. They need to be able to work, to contribute, to do more than just sit around and get paid by taxpayer money. And I'm not saying this is all of them, this is a very small amount of them that actually do, but just that small, even if it's just like 5 or 10%, is costing taxpayers millions upon millions of dollars. It's like just one person can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to fund with certain things throughout, not just throughout their lifetime, but just throughout a year, through 2 years, through 3 years, whatever. It's just sitting here like it's our socialistic programs are there to get people back on their feet. They're not there to supply you for the rest of your life. And this is what we need to take into account with according to his ability. You need to perform according to your ability. Like if you can cure cancer, by all means you should cure cancer. If you can, all you can do is farm a field, farm a field. If all you can do is flip a burger, and do your best to get better than that. Do your best to move on from that, and do what you can to get what you need. And this is why we also have charities. Give what you don't need to charity. Like the Bill Gates Foundation is huge because Bill Gates, as much money as he has, he's given so much of it to charity. He's given so much of it away to other people who need it more than he does. Like he's still a billionaire by all means, but he's given so much money away. He's given so much things away. You need to be like if you have the ability to contribute to charity, to volunteer, do it. And this is a good thing that we need. So honestly, I'm going to strongly agree on this one. But just agree, because it's important to do that too. And you'll better society and you'll better yourself. So that's a good one. I like that one. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled brand consumer product. Yes and no, because there's still tap water. There's still rivers and streams that, if you know how to purify it, you can. You don't have to pay for it. It's just, yeah, it sucks. It is that consumer ideal. It's not the worst thing on the planet. So it's kind of like I'm just gonna slightly disagree on this one because in the nature of communism, not communism, God, in the nature of capitalism, um, it makes sense. Um, should you charge for water? Probably not. It is a basic human need, but that's the same for shelter. It's a basic human need, but you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for the roof you live under. Oxygen. If that starts getting charged, then that's definitely going too far. But I'm. There should be a point where it's it. And plus, a bottle of water is very cheap, especially like some of the water, like your freaking Voss water, does not need to be $8-9 a bottle. You can easily like it's not exactly expensive. I worked at a grocery store, and the good infant infant water, I guess it was something like that. It costed like 99 cents a jug. That's cheap. I think anyone can afford 99 cents for a gallon. And plus, like I said, you have tap water, you have streams, and we have purifying devices. You could pure. Did I just kick? I kicked my shoe. We have purifying devices, and so if you can easily get around having to pay for water. Collect rainwater, purify that rainwater, so on and so forth. It's just a nature of the capitalistic beast. But there are ways to get around it. You just got to look them up. You got to figure it out. You got to figure it out. Like if you boil stream water, um, like get it to a boiling point, set it to boil for like a minute or two. That water should be safe to drink. Um, like I said, it's extremely cheap if you don't get the expensive ass brands of water. So I honestly don't think it's that big of a problem, but we need to make sure that it doesn't go too far. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. I'm again gonna disagree with this one because again, it is the nature of the capitalistic beast, and overall, society has become capitalistic, and that's not just America, that's not just Europe, that's now uh, good parts of Asia, parts of Africa, everywhere. Like, if we didn't need to, then no. Land should not be that. That's why we have public land. You just can't develop on it like in national forests. It's it's protected. It's guarded. You're not supposed to be able to develop on it. Because of the way society is, because of how far we've expanded, because of um, what society deems we need, land is a very expensive commodity. And like I said, we're territorial. And the purchase of land and that deed of land is very important to us because it shows that I am the master of this land. I control this, and you can't tell me otherwise, except for the government. Like the problem more so is the government imposing this, imposing the you. We need that land, so we're taking it away from you. Like with building the border. That's going to tear apart so many things because there's a lot of land on the border that is part on American soil, part on Mexican soil. And we've already seen, I saw it on the news the other day, that there's this part of the border fence that runs through, I think it's El Paso, Texas. Um, like his house is in Mexico, and his farm, I believe, is in America, and he has to cross through the border fence in order to get to one and the other. And he had a fire truck go right past his house when his house was on fire because they physically could not get to it. So it gets to a point where we don't need the government to impose so much on it. Um, like especially like with also with that documentary I mentioned. God, didn't think I'd be bringing that up in a discussion like this. Well, I could probably make sense of that would have. But anyway, getting back to it, um, the government has a policy where if I forget exactly what it's called, but where if they think that you are dealing in illegal matters, mostly drug related, they can seize and take your land and basically charge your land with a crime, whether or not you did anything wrong. And so that's sitting here like that's overstepping governmental boundaries in my viewpoint. So that should not happen. But being bought and sold, no, it's just part of the way we live right now. If we can figure out a way to go back to the naturalistic roots and still have the society we have today, then I strongly support that. But with the way we are today, I don't see the problem with buying and selling land. So it just means you are the owner of that property. It, like I said, with the bringing back to the territorial instinct in us, it really helps with that. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by those who simply manipulate money, contribute. Ha 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 ha. Strongly agree to this because, like I said, this is if you can figure out a way to manipulate society and manipulate. This is for, like I said, that small portion of those who manipulate the welfare and food stamp programs, to those who manipulate social services to be like, um, to where they don't have to contribute to society, but they are made on ill-gotten gains. This is also part of, like with drug cartels and drug dealers and whatnot, like your extensive, um, yeah, oop, is sometimes in, um, oh god, I'm losing my train of thought on this one. Um, like, like with the way society works, you need to contribute to really be a part of it. Whether that's voting, whether that's paying taxes, whether that's being a police officer, whether that's just having a job. You need to have some contribute, be able to contribute to society in order for yourself to grow and for society to grow as a whole. Um, and you shouldn't just live off the welfare that you receive. You shouldn't just live off the food stamps. And it should be made in a way where that's not you can't only survive off that. You need to have a job. You need to have income. You need to have more than just a government system paying for your life. And that's where I stand on that. And you need to be able to contribute back to society, like I said, with a job, with paying taxes, with whatever, because you're basically dead weight if you don't, and it sucks. But if in a time of in a time of crisis, you are basically useless. People you may be able to manipulate the system, but you're not going to have anything valuable to offer up for for your life. Like look at The Walking Dead. People in The Walking Dead survive because they serve a greater purpose than just themselves. They have skill sets that are important for the consistent survival of their group. And yes, if they run into another group, that's a different story. But I'm talking about within the group themselves. They aren't just there for them. If they were, they either get kicked out or killed. Um, and that's the same with that's a big part of like your nomadic cultures and dating back to early nomadic cultures to Native Americans to current ones uh, in Central Asia, South America, and mostly Saharan Africa. Those in those nomadic cultures need to contribute, otherwise they're dead weight. They don't need to be dragging them around all the time. You, if you don't contribute, you don't deserve the resources that everyone else provides for them. If that makes any sense, that is how I view it. So, perfect, protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Yes, I think the way that's worded is a little confused, but by the way I'm viewing it is like not necessarily like bodyguards on shipments of stuff, but like that's probably part of it, but also like patents and um, yep, patents. This ranges from like I think patents to like I said, bodyguards to other stuff. It's just pretty much a way to protect your assets, a way to protect your goods and services and whatnot. So yes, I think we're just gonna agree because that's what I view, and I don't really have much to discuss on it. Um, the only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit. To disagree, like the shareholders are important to a company because what they that's their prime. That is one of their primary funds, especially with companies now who are grassroots raised. Um, like these companies need to be able to contribute more than just the product they sell. They need to be able to, like with earlier, they need to protect the environment. They need to how like I honestly think like each company should have some sort of charity division that either donates the money to charity or they have a charity themselves to help better the rest of everything. Because honestly, a CEO doesn't need to be making billions of dollars a year to better themselves to increase their mansion or whatever. Like they should have an obligation to help society as a whole. And like I said, not just the product they sell, not just the shareholders, just overall, just help society. Rich are too highly taxed. Uh, Disagree. They they should be taxed in proportion to their wealth. They shouldn't be taxed like they shouldn't. The taxes get very very complicated. Because people don't like taxes. First off, no matter how much money you make, you always think taxes are more of a burden than anything. But they also help society, and you probably wouldn't have 90% of social services today if there weren't for taxes, like roads, parks, water systems, public water, public pools, your police department, your fire department, certain hospitals and whatnot. You wouldn't have without taxes. And I believe that the rich should be taxed in proportion to their money, and they should be taxed more than the poor, like on a percentage basis. Um, and it's sitting here because like there's a good example. $1 to somebody who makes $10 is 10% of their money of what they can do with it. And if that 10% is taxed in one way or another, that is a big deal. That $1 is a big deal. If it's for someone who has $100, like that that $1 is only 10%, or no, only 1%. For $1,000, just keep adding zeros in front of it, points. That's 0.1%. With a with $10,000, 0.01, so on and so forth. Just keep adding zeros in one direction or the other, and it's just sitting here like, why should someone like you? Kind of you also have the viewpoint of, if I earn this money, why should I have to give it up? In the sense, you're not giving it up. You're using it to help society grow. And it, like I said, it should be within proportion to how much you make. And it shouldn't just be based on a flat percentage rate. It shouldn't just be 10%. Because like an example of the 10% is like the 10% of $100 is just 10,000, 100. Like the more you increase, the more zeros you add, the less that 10% really matters to you. The less that 10% really makes a difference. The less money you make, the more important that 10% is. That 10% could be food for a week. That 10% could be being able to buy a house or not. That 10% could be the difference between having a car that can get you elsewhere, that can get you somewhere, riding the bus. That 10% could even be the difference between walking and riding the bus. That 10, it just all depends. So you need to you need to tax the rich at a higher percentage, but not so much so where it makes a huge impact on their income. You need it to a point where yes, they can still survive their rich lifestyle if they so choose, but to a point where it's basically unnoticeable in a sense. And that's how taxing, in my viewpoint, really should be. Is make it a high enough percent where they can get they can they can help society more, but not such a high enough percent where it's drastically affecting how their lifestyle is. And if they really live a extravagant lifestyle, they should watch their money anyway, because you never know when it's going to run out. Like with sport athletes and whatnot, they don't always save up enough, and that's another key thing. If you save up more than you spend, you're going to be fine for the rest of your life, especially the more money you make. But if, like with an athlete, if you don't save while you're an athlete, because the average athlete is maybe 10 to 15 years working of work, and sometimes even not even that, but with a lot of like NFL players or NBA players, they make in more in 1 year than some people make in a lifetime. And sitting here, that's being like, okay, you should put at least, if you put at least half of that away each year, or even if you put 10% of them, if you put like 10% of $1 million away each year instead of spending it on something, then you are going to be able to retire and live a decent lifestyle. Maybe not the way you were living when you were making that much money, but at least be able to live a comfortable lifestyle without needing to worry. So it's the rich just don't want to lose their money just as much as the poor person doesn't want to lose their money. It's just the point of like with taxes, what's the point of being taxed too much? What's the point of being taxed and not enough? It's a very gray line on both sides of the spectrum, and it's very interesting to see how it works and how different presidents, how different Congresses, how different governments try and go about it. Because there's not going to be a perfect way to go about it, but there's going to be something close enough to where people probably won't argue too much. But it needs to be a point where the poor person can still live a lifestyle that's surviving and more than just surviving. It's a way that they can easily maybe get a steak dinner every once in a while, or maybe go to the movies a few times a year, or something more than just surviving. And the rich should be able to contribute more than just a small percentage of what they make. They should be able to contribute something in proportion to be able to help society. Either that, or they should have to donate to a charity that contributes to society, or something along those lines. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Ooh, this one gets very complicated. I'm going to agree simply for the fact of things like plastic surgery, things like certain things I guess should be more expensive. I don't know. But like your basic human needs, your basic healthcare, like your broken bones, your like the flu, like going to the doctor for your physical should not cost that much. If you have a severe autoimmune system disorder or something, you shouldn't have to spend your life savings on getting medication. So this is very hard to. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree on this actually. Not like strongly disagree, but just enough to disagree to be like I said, you should not have to pay um so much money to be able to afford to live. Like that's the problem is when you have to decide if your life if it's cheaper to die than to go to the hospital, something's wrong. Um so yeah, no. You should not have so much. You should not have life, like especially life-saving healthcare. That should be available to the public for relatively cheap, relatively affordable. You should not have to pay hundreds of $1,000s, sometimes out of pocket, um, just to survive, just to be able to live in certain situations. 'Cause a lot of that is out of your control. The drug overdose, that kind of was your choice. But addiction is also something that we need to treat in itself because it is a disease. So this is both a simple and a complex answer. So that's easily a singular video of debate. Speaking of which, this video is going to be probably at least an hour long. I think it's already reaching the hour mark, so this is going to be fun. Those with the I already read that one. Government should penalize businesses that mislead. That yes, 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 and yes. You should have transparency with what you are doing, whether it's like a pharmaceutical company and what its side effects are, or if it's a some kind of food and what its ingredients are. Really, it's really pretty much the ingredients and whatever the hell you're making. Or like if you or like with technology, if you say it can do this, this, and that, it should be able to do this, this, and that. But if it can't do that, or if it can't do this, then you are lying. You are misleading the public. You should get penalized. You should receive some kind of backlash from government or whatever. You should, and we do have that. There is things like misrepresentation, false advertising that are there and whatnot. And it is, I don't remember exactly what the punishment for that is, but it's definitely it's not exactly cheap. And and there's also things like fraud and whatnot that are there, and that's definitely a lot worse than like false advertising. But you should get penalized for misleading the public for what you're selling, especially if it's food, especially if it's medical care, and especially now with technology. It what you say something does should be what it does. If there's a side effect that you don't know about, as soon as you find out, you should do a new study and so on and so forth. But if you know about something, you need to say it. You need to be like, oh yeah, it does this. I'm sorry, but we're selling it and it's on the label. So it should have everything it say it does and avoid anything that you know of. And yeah, exactly. Oh, it's getting late. I have work at 9. Not 9 tonight, but 9 in the morning. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Um, the free market is a beautiful thing because of competition, because of the need for things. If you have a monopoly on something, or if there are different companies in that, like with the cell phone companies, are a good example. There are the ones like they have probably doesn't need to be expensive as it is, in the sense of like you have pretty much three or four different cell phone manufacturers, um, that are sitting here like controlling things, and that's why you have to pay six, 700 to sometimes $1,500 to $2,500 for a phone, instead of 20, 30, 40, even like as much as $100 for a phone. Because you can get a smartphone for $100. It's just the biggest piece of shit cell phone that you'll ever buy. At least smartphone wise. And you can get cell phones for as cheap as I've seen $10 or $15. So, like your big core cell phone manufacturers probably don't need to make it at $600, $700 and so on and so forth. But because they probably they have an agreed thing where the price can be as big as it is because it may not be a monopoly, but it's like, oh, I forget what the term is. If you've gotten through to this part of the video, please let me know. But it's like some sort of agreement between different companies to keep the price where it is. Just like with like another good example is cars. You have so many car companies that exist, but they're all several $1,000s too expensive. And as soon as something is purchased and drives off that manufacturer lot, it immediately diminishes in price. And the longer someone else owns it and that company does not, it gets so cheap. That's why you can buy a 4 or 5, even some, like even sometimes a year-old vehicle for tens of thousands of dollars off its manufactured price. You don't need to pay $35,000 for a car. You don't need to pay $100,000 for a car. You can easily find good running quality cars for as cheap as a couple $100. And like, yeah, you might need to do a little bit more maintenance on it, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper than forking over $35,000 for $45,000 or so. So if you don't need to, and that's the problem is like if there's a sole manufacturer of goods, then they can control the price and they can basically control your life. So, and especially those like things like General Mills, they control so many different food products, or like Kroger controls so many different food products, but Kroger is definitely the name, not the name brand, they're the generic brand, so they generally keep their prices pretty cheap, because they kind of understand some things. But like with like a General Mills is a good example because you can basically get the exact same cereal with a different package for $4 or $5 cheaper than an $8 box of cereal, and you'll get more inside that bag of cereal than you will in that box. Like as tasty as it is, I do not think it's worth that. Like I like it every once in a while. There is a slight taste difference between like your generic brand Fruit Loops themselves. So there's that, right? So it's just the monopolies end up screwing society out more in the end than anything. Free of the market, the free of the people. Yeah, yeah. Because like if there does need to, I'm gonna donate slightly, because there does need to be some regulation in the market, so you don't have like guns being sold everywhere. You need regulation on guns. You need like at least the like certain regulations. Like you don't need an absolute gun control. That's probably going to get brought up down the road. So if not, I've talked about it before, and I'll talk about it again. Um, and it also like helps like with an absolutely free market. There is the higher potential of monopolization, and you need restrictions on monopolization. You need restrictions on like pharmaceuticals to not sell things that are most likely going to kill you. You need something like that. Like, but you also with a true free market, I think it would be much better and cheaper to barter and trade rather than sell. Um, and that's how society was for millennia. before monetary systems were introduced. And even then, when monetary systems were introduced, people bartered for goods rather than sold them. And even today, in like communities, you can easily barter for goods and services, and it's non-IRS trackable. You don't have to worry. Like the money's nice to be able to pay for things, but if you can barter for those services, then it'll be cheaper than having to pay for them, or having to get paid by them. Because if you trade, let's say, fixing a water heater for a good dinner, a good home cooked dinner, great. Or if you can, like, whatever, just figure out ways to keep things cheap for yourself by trading and bartering, you should by all means do that. So, but at the same time, you do need some restrictions on the free market just to, in a sense, protect the public, and also protect the corporations. Even though I know that's a death sentence saying that, just so they have some protective rights from, like, if they create a patent, someone's stealing that patent and selling it. Like, that was a big problem because with certain things, because people didn't get credit for certain things, and that's another complicated issue in of itself that I really don't want to get into at 11 o'clock at night. This is a really bad idea to start this. Ooh. Uh. Ooh. This one sucks. Abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. No, abortion should not be illegal. Oh, this should be worded very differently and whatnot. It should definitely not be, because I personally don't think it should be legal. I also don't support it. I don't think people should do it. I think you should have to jump through hundreds of loopholes, or yeah, not loopholes, but hoops to jump through, because it is a killing of a human life. And just because it's legal doesn't mean we should do it. But there is also the sense of, if people are not going to do it legally, then they are going to find some way to do it illegally, and that's just going to cause more harm. And with abortion being legal, you can also bring up the argument with slavery was legal. Was that rational? Was that good? Was that bad? Was that, like, and also, like, in other countries, there are some countries where rape is perfectly legal, and is that morally sound? Like, just because it's legal doesn't mean it's moral and or ethical. And because in my personal beliefs, my personal viewpoints, from the evidence I have seen, you are killing and snuffing out a human life. You are not giving them the potential for thriving as a human being. You are taking away before it's even really truly given. You and there's also the very, very fine line of, when do you stop? When do you stop being able to give an abortion? Is it the 1 month mark, the 2 month mark, the 1 week, 2 weeks? You go all the way up till they're born? Can you kill them after they're born? It's a very, very tough topic to talk about, because there's so many ways you can go about it, both right and wrong, both pro-life and pro-choice, where it's going to be debated until society as a whole decides one way or another. Just like we did with slavery, just like we did with so many other things that are just immoral, and it's infanticide. It's just because you can't afford a baby doesn't mean you should kill it. Because chances are, when you were born, your parents probably couldn't afford you either. Babies are expensive. Babies cost so much money because they cannot care for themselves. They cannot work. They They cannot do anything. And in society, you need to care for them for 18 plus years. And I say 18 plus because they're like me. I still live with my parents, and I'm still costing them money. But I'm also helping them around the house with doing chores and whatnot. So it's sitting here like um, it's definitely a very hard topic to discuss because there are so many ways to go about it, and it's definitely not a good topic to talk about with when I need to go to bed in at least an hour, at most an hour, really. So I will gladly talk about it later, and especially with someone with a different viewpoint, because I want to have a good discussion, a good debate on this, to understand more of the other side, to be more reasonable instead of just saying, "This is my viewpoint. You should believe it." No, you have every right to have your own viewpoint. It's just my personal beliefs and my personal viewpoint, and from all evidence I've seen, I will not support abortion as a whole. There are certain things like health risks that I can understand with rape and incest. I can understand, but you are still killing a human life. Just because I understand it doesn't mean I agree with it. Doesn't mean I think you should do it. It just means I can understand why, but I really don't support it, and I think you shouldn't do it. All authority should be questioned. Yes. Um, you should always question authority, and there are definitely respectful and not respectful ways of going about this. Like with your government, always question your government. Always question the motives of those in power, because you don't know what they're going to do. Like there was a like again, Nazi Germany is a great example of this. Stalin is a great example of this. Soviet Russia, I think Stalin and Soviet Russia are one and the same. Kim Jong Un, Kim Jong Il, the entire Kim Jong family, um, are great examples because there are very few people that actually question their authority. There are very few people that question leadership. This is how you get dictators. This is how you get genocide. This is how you get so many of life's problems, is because there are people following orders blindly without thinking about the right or wrong, without thinking of the good or bad, without thinking of the consequences of just like I'm following these orders because I'm told to. Like there's also the reasoning of my life might be in danger, but that's also a different thing. You could still do the right thing and be a martyr for a better cause, so on and so forth. Like it's sitting here like all authority should be questioned, but there's also respectful ways to go about it, like with the police. Like if you get pulled over, you ask why was I pulled over. If they go to arrest you, you politely ask why am I being arrested, under what charges, um, and you'll have a right to a lawyer. You should follow those. But if they tell you to do something, you should still do it because that is protecting both them and you and others around you. Because if they tell you to drop something, you drop it because they can perceive it as a gun, especially in lower light situations or at a distance. Because if you have something in your hand, and with various sizes of weapons, you never know what is in somebody's hand. You need to drop it. If you have a gun, you should tell them you have a gun and do not reach. If you are reaching for your wallet and your gun is on your right hand side and that's also where your wallet is, you do not. You tell the officer, they let them take that gun, or just let them get the wallet themselves or something, because your life could is always going to be at risk in a situation like that, because the officer knows you have a weapon and they have enough experience and enough knowledge of other people's experiences to where they understand that people who have a weapon are always dangerous, because you don't know their motives, you don't know what they're going to do, you don't know if they're going to kill you. That's why I respect people who put on the uniform, but I will question them. I will question why they're pulling me over. I will question why I would be getting arrested. I would question things. I would make sure, I would definitely talk to legal counsel and make sure it's all legal. Make sure it's all reasonable on why they were doing it. And like I said, like with questioning the government, that's why we have peaceful protests. That's why we have petitions. That's why we have the ability to vote on topics and be able to um, have our voices heard. That's why we have freedom of speech and so on and so forth. Eye and eye and a tooth for a tooth. Disagree. An eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. Like yes, if someone like I understand this line of punishment, and your crimes should be equal to that of what you did. It shouldn't be worse, really worse than that. Like it's like say I punch you, you punch me. I knock your tooth out, you knock my tooth out. I poke your eye, you poke my eye out, so on and so forth. And eventually, I will get to a point where we don't know who started what. We don't know who went first, and we'll end up both. Like I said, eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. Um, and it's sitting here like I'm just gonna slightly disagree because I think that there should be a point where, like I said, a punishment should be equal to a crime. Like if you kill someone, you should definitely get the jail time for it. If you are a mass murderer, you should be put in the chair. And whatnot. Like there are definitely crimes that do not deserve 40 plus years in prison, like a drug charge. Unless you are harming somebody, you should not get more than I don't know 10 years in prison. I don't even know what I would give somebody for like a basic drug charge, even for a high level drug charge. I'm not sure what I would give depending on what it was. Like if it was with like heroin with the intent to sell, then hell yeah, you should go to prison. Um, but if it's just like marijuana or underage alcohol or selling alcohol to a minor, you should not be charged with a hell of a lot of jail time. It just like it's for your lesser crimes, you should get a lesser punishment. And that's what the war on drugs brought in was extending. Like there was, oh, I forget what his name was, but there was this one guy, this one military vet that was selling drugs to help pay for college, and it was his first time offense, and he got life in prison. That is not good. That should not happen. That you need to have punishment equal to that of a crime. Um, if it's more, it shouldn't be much more, and if it's less, it shouldn't really be much less. I don't know. It gets complicated with the exact time and the exact punishment, but even still, you should not. What? Theaters should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial. What? What? Are you talking about like public theaters or I'm gonna disagree. Because public access is the biggest thing we have, whether that's public access, public access TV, whether it's in the gathering of information, like a library or not. That and we should have the ability to have these things, like a museum that might not. Like, I think tax. I think tax money that goes towards a theater or museum is well worth it. It is well worth my money to fund it. Whether or not I go to it is a different story, but it's still well worth it to inform and entertain. It's like laughter is the best medicine and information is the best weapon. It's just I think public access to theaters and museums are very important. Whether or not they are successful on a commercial basis is a different story. That's why with some museums, there's a donation system. There's like also with like a lot of your public theaters, you can donate to the theater. You can be a sponsor of the theater on top of the taxpayer money to help pay for things. So no, I don't think that you should take away the taxpayer fund. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Oh, let me just double check the definition of compulsory. properly. The way I'm thinking of it. Okay, obligatory. Okay, that's what I was thinking. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I'm on the fence with this one because I know people that would not have gone to school if they didn't have to, and they would not be where they are today if they didn't have to go to school. But at the same time, there are plenty of people who've dropped out of school that have been extremely successful in life or that needed to. And there's definitely more ways to learn. So I'm going to slightly disagree because I also know that there's some people that because they are forced to go to school, they don't want to go to school. This is a very interesting topic, for, obviously for another day because of how late it is. But it's just sitting here like it's God. These answers are so not black and these answers are so black and white, but the questions aren't. It's there's just you can't really be like one. It's so hard to be completely or uncompletely against these or for these. Some of them, okay, some of them are extremely easy to be for and against, but others, no. All people have their rights, but it's better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their. What the no, no. We. All right, think about it this way: if everyone kept to their own, we would not have civilization as we are. We would not have our current arithmetic system. We would not have Roman numerals. We would not have curry. We would not have so many. We wouldn't have so much that we have today if cultures didn't intermingle. The honestly, the evolution of human society and the growth of civilization is heavily dependent on the intermixing of culture and groups of people because of how different we are. We are curious creatures. We want to know more, and that curiosity helps us grow. It can also get us killed. That's a different story. Um, that curiosity and that thirst for more, and it goes back to that. It also goes back to greed because we want what other people have, and in that sense, that has helped us grow. It's also harmed us, but it's a very bipolar beast. Greed. But it's like if we kept our own, we wouldn't have cell phones, we wouldn't have computers, we wouldn't have cars, we wouldn't have the railroad, we wouldn't have steam engines, we wouldn't have the cotton gin, we wouldn't have so many important. We probably wouldn't even have the ink press, or we wouldn't have modern art. We wouldn't have so many things without intermixing of culture with the growth of civilization. So no, culture should not keep to themselves. We should always be intermixing. Like we should still preserve the culture in of itself and it's as original of the culture as we can get, but those people should not stick to themselves. They should like if they want to intermingle, they should. But they like I'm not gonna obligate people to be like you must socialize with the rest of us. And I'm also not going to force them to be like, you over there, you have a different skin color than mine. Stay away. No, that's just garbage. That's just total garbage. So no. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Yes. I am a proponent for capital. Is it capital punishment? Yeah, I think that's what it is. Because I was spanked as a kid. Like I didn't turn out to be a bad human being. I don't consider myself to be have been abused as a child. I lived a pretty good life. With my mom considering circumstances. I'm not going to go into those circumstances right now because it's irrelevant. Because it's just irrelevant. But no, sometimes like it's kind of what's a good example? Like sometimes punishments don't work for people. Like when I would back talk my mother, there were times when I got soap in the mouth. There got to a point where that soap didn't work because I would just start blowing bubbles because it made me laugh. Um, where she stopped sending me to my room because I had books, I had video games, I had a drawing pad. Sending me to a room wasn't much of a punishment. Like, just like sending people to prison, certain sentences are not punishment enough. Certain things are not enough to make you not want to do it again. So you need that you need that deterrent. Yes, it's a fear tactic. Yes, it can be construed as abuse, but it really isn't. And it also depends on how frequent it also depends on how frequent it happens, how minor of a thing they did. Like it goes back to the punishment equaling crime. Like, is it is that spanking necessary? You need to spank if they said something wrong, if they said a curse word, whatever. It's different. Like, if it all depends. It really depends. I personally don't think it's a bad thing. And I honestly think that if some kids were spanked, they wouldn't be as ugh, as just. I honestly think some kids should have been spanked as a child, or some people should have been. Obviously, some weren't. It's almost like you can tell who were punished by their parents and who weren't. So it's very interesting. Uh, yes, it is very natural to keep secrets from your parents. Even as adults, you don't explain them to everyone because there are things that are very, um, like, especially like if like here's a good example. If somebody wants to come out to their parents, but they are very conservative, very religious, there are definitely those that probably shouldn't come out to their parents, and it should keep it a secret. And like secrets can hurt; they can hurt like a bitch. But sometimes, like that coming out will be worse for like there are people who have been completely kicked out and abandoned by their families because they came out. Like, it all depends on the secret. Like, if you lied, you that about like it's interesting again because it depends on what it is. It depends on how you know your parents will most likely react, and how their political and personal viewpoints are. Like, as a younger child, um, keeping certain things from your parents are as innocent as having a jar of change under your dresser, having having like a porno magazine hiding under your mattress or something. It's you like it's some things are innocent. Some of these are innocent, but some things can be bad. Like hiding, like if you're a kid who gets hooked on drugs early, then that's bad. It just depends on what it is, truthfully. Possessing marijuana for a person should not be a criminal offense. Agree. Again, ask 8th grade me, and holy crap, would I be on the opposite side of this issue? I have definitely gotten more liberal over the years. I'm only 20. Um, but marijuana, yes, I've experienced its effects, and truthfully, they're not as bad as groups like Dare say they are. It's like if there was one point where I this is one in one you could I think you could watch this on one at least one of my stand up things is I accidentally ate a that was a moth going into my mouth. I accidentally ate a pop cookie, or at least half of one. Because my friend didn't tell me it was, and I never had an edible before, so I didn't know what it should taste or smell like. Because it didn't, to me, it did not smell like weed. And good God, I get the effects of it, but they weren't damaging. It just made me dog tired. 45 minutes after I ate it, all I wanted to do was pass out in my bed, I had the best night's sleep I've ever had. So it should be definitely for personal use. It's equivalent and even lesser than and lesser than alcohol. I have never seen anybody so messed up on weed that they would like it's not the same as drinking at all. You're not gonna get that bad. You're not gonna get. I've never seen a violent stoner. Not saying there aren't any, but I've never seen any. I don't see any proof of one. It just does not have the same effects as those you heard about when you were kids. Um, the prime functions are equipped, yes. Strongly agree. School is, yes, it can be very social. It is very important to have that social aspect. But especially as you get to your higher grades, like junior high and high school, and especially college, it becomes less of a social thing and more of a you're about to enter the real world. You're about to enter the workforce. Like the main reason for like elementary and middle school is kind of to get you ready for socializing, get you ready for communicating between other people, give you the basics of being able to perform a basic skill like reading a ruler or whatnot, like your home ec classes and whatnot. But as it gets to high school, you need to start getting ready to enter the workforce because whether or not you graduate, you are going to need a job. Even in high school, you are most likely going to need a job because you will have a car. You will most likely have a car. Um, you will have you'll want to spend time with your friends away from home. You want to go to football games. You want to go to events. You want to go to the theater. You'll want to go see the marching band practice. You want to go see the gymnastics team perform. You're gonna need money to do these things. You're gonna need a job, and some people just are not prepared for that job, and that's because they did not pay attention in school. They didn't pay attention to their parents. They didn't pay attention to their teachers, even if they weren't teaching. It was just them speaking. Um, and school should be a place to get ready for a job. That's why I think there should be more programs because there was a program in Jefferson County where I went to school called Warren Tech, and it was a place for it was essentially a technical school, like a not a technical school, but a like it had stuff like car maintenance stuff. It had video game design. It had music production. It had some of your stuff that you don't need a high level degree for. It had a lot of your like mechanic jobs. It had stuff to be a firefighter. It had a fire tech program. It had a culinary arts program that you could enter in. Basically, have a job. Some of them had a job immediately after graduating high school because of Warren Tech, and it and some people completed a 2 or 3 year degree within that program because of the services it provided, and they were able to get great jobs because of it. So you need to be able to be prepared for a job out after school or even during school as you get towards high school. So yes, school should be to help introduce you to the real world, to help ease you into the real world, to help get you a job, help perform in society. People with serious inheritable disease should not be allowed to disagree. Because one, you are not guaranteed to pass those genes down. Two, just really, like you can't exactly control that unless you castrate them. And like I said, you don't know. Even with genetics, you don't know who's a carrier of a disease and who's not. Like your mother could be a carrier, but their daughter could not be. The daughter might not be, or the mother might not be a carrier, but the daughter might be. Same goes for father, son, father, daughter, mother, son, so on and so forth, yada yada yada. Um, it's like there are definitely things that you can't control. Like if because there are so many diseases out there, and so many of them are hard to identify exactly where they stem from. Like diabetes can both be a natural phenomenon, or it could be a what you eat phenomenon, or what you do phenomenon. It's very hard to pinpoint necessarily. Like my best friend's asshole of a husband has diabetes, and he had a potential of definitely getting diabetes in his lifetime while he was in, I believe it was basic training towards going to A school. That whatever he had there triggered his diabetes, and he had to, without even being there 2 years, he was basically discharged on medical um, and whatnot. So he couldn't even be a Marine with what he had because of how bad it was. It's just gotten worse and worse. And the more I go into that, the more it's a video for another day. That should not be a public video. But if it gets to that point, you'll know something's wrong with that. But no, with certain diseases, with the medical treatment we have today, with the more affordable it's getting, no, anybody can reproduce. Really, some people probably shouldn't, but that's more so for how they raise their kids how they're than their genetics themselves. Um, but that's again more of a personal viewpoint and not really like me wanting to castrate them. Just me thinking that they shouldn't have kids because they're terrible parents. The most important thing for children is to learn is to accept discipline. Mm. I would not say it's the most important thing. The most important thing to a child is curiosity and the willingness to learn. So I'm going to degree simply on that basis. They should understand discipline, and if they do something wrong, there's going to be punishment. But they shouldn't necessarily accept it. This one's just weirdly worded. I mean, like I said, it's not the most important thing. Most important thing is curiosity, and sometimes you make mistakes, and you should learn not to, and by doing that, you get punished for it. There are no savage or civilized people. There are only different cultures. Yes. No, wrong way. Yes. Yeah, there are. Because at the point of it is, the more we progress, the more we say things are immoral. The more we say things are unjust, the more diseases we uncover, the more we understand how detrimental certain practices were, like cannibalism, human sacrifice, and a bunch of other crap. And it's not necessarily civilized versus savages. That's also part of what brought us slavery and why the race situation has been so bad in America. No, it's just different people of different cultures and different backgrounds. Some stuff just people won't agree with, and other stuff people don't care about. Some stuff probably shouldn't be happening, but doesn't mean they're more savage. It just means they have a different way of life. Whether they're right or wrong is a different question entirely. Those who are able to work and should not expect society's support. Now, hey, we had this conversation earlier. If you are not willing to work, I do not want my tax money going to you. You should, if you have the ability but do not work, you should not get taxpayer money to fund your life. You should at least make an effort to get a job. And I think there's a bill being proposed for this exact thing. For those who are on Medicare, for those who are on certain social programs and governmental programs, that if you have the ability to work, to some degree, you should. You should. And there's really no questioning that. You shouldn't just freeload off of everyone else. You need to work. When you are troubled, it's better to. Again, I'm more on the fence with this. Sometimes it's damn blissful to just ignore your problems, but you can't. You really cannot ignore your problems or ignore anything that's happening. Because if you ignore it, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And like it's important to also keep busy with more cheerful things to kind of keep yourself going. But you should learn from mistakes. You should learn from troubles and move on from them and try and avoid doing them again. But if you completely ignore it, chances are you'll make that same mistake again. Fully first generation immigrants, I'm going to disagree with this. It part of it depends on how deeply ingrained their original culture was. There are definitely those that are just not compatible with, like, a good example is Islam in Western society. There are certain sects of Islam that are just non-compatible with Western society that are just so far opposite that it's completely incompatible. But there are definitely those who accept their wherever they move to, they accept the rules, they accept their rights, they accept that whatever happens is within that country's rules, and that whatever country they came from doesn't have authority over them. They don't have they don't really have much authority over what happens to them necessarily. That's really bad wording. I don't know how to word it better off the top of my head though. But it's just sitting here like it's it's there are definitely some people that cannot integrate with a new country, but most people can easily adapt. It's not a big deal for a majority of people, just a very small percentage of people that can adapt very well. What's good for the most successful corporation is always ultimately good for all of us. I'm gonna disagree. Because okay, let's see. The here's another good example from the documentary. I am bringing that up. I gotta remember what the hell it was on the documentary. If you want to look it up, it was on History Channel the other night, and it was I think it was called America or the U.S. versus or the U.S. It was something about U.S. and drugs. Like, I think it was America's drug war, the U.S. drug war, or something like that. But it was on History. You could probably easily look it up. And what was that? It was pharmaceutical companies were getting massive amounts of profits off of precursors to methamphetamine, which was amphetamines and whatnot. And they knew about it. They didn't say anything about it. They didn't really care because they were getting massive profits and massive increase in profits. And that ultimately led to a bigger drug problem, a bigger addiction to meth and opioids. That is, we're seeing the backlash of that now. Like in the short term, yeah, it can be it can be damn good for the economy, it can be damn good for the country. But in the long term, there are some things that not should not be promoted, and you often don't know about it until hindsight. Hindsight's usually 20/20, and almost always is. So there are definitely things that benefit corporations that don't benefit all of society. No broadcasting institution disagree again, because by this I'm thinking it can be talking about churches. It could be talking about like Rocky Mountain PBS, which is a public broadcasting network. And things like college radio, things like public access radio, public access television, so on and so forth. That it's just sitting here there are certain things that probably don't need to be funded by taxpayer money, but it's hard to control it, and there's a point where it starts becoming more of a business than a public service. Just like with churches, they get tax rebates, they get not rebates, they are tax exempt. That's what it is. Um, but there are some churches that just make so much money off what they bring in. I guarantee you, a lot of that, not necessarily most, but a lot of it doesn't go to charities. It goes to the infrastructure of the church. It goes to increasing it. It goes to all sorts of things that you can't necessarily control. Um, and it's not always a bad thing. Like there are some of these churches that make a shit ton of money that will put it back to the community almost instantly. And there are also those churches that are basically just Super Bowl stadiums that all the money just gets put back into the church, into getting more expensive glass windows, their getting their pastor a fancy ass car or something along those lines. There are definitely those who exploit the public funding than others, and it's not a majority at all. And it's just those just put a bad taste in everyone else's mouth. So then certain things should still get public funding. It's just those bad apples that you need to weed out. All right, how do you see our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism? This is another very difficult issue. Like I see what Edward Snowden did with the NSA and government accessing what we have to say and do every day. He's a hero. He is an American hero in my view. And it's very, very hard to talk about this issue without being controversial. There are definitely some civil liberties that we need to protect, but there's also those that if we don't give something up, we're going to be at more risk. So I'm going to do a slight agree in the sense that our privacy is extremely important, and there are definitely some government policies that should not exist that can basically completely destroy your life and your livelihood over false accusations, um, over so many things that just this is a conversation for a video that's not at 11 o'clock at night. Ugh. Especially when I work in the morning. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments. What? Oh my god. That's just a stupid question. Okay, you have a one-party state. That is a dictatorship. That is basically authoritarianism. That is just if whatever they say goes and you have nothing and you can't do it. The two-party or the multi-party or a multi-party system essentially institutes the fact of transparency. It brings in a need to discuss policies. It brings in a point of what's right, what's wrong, and what can we do to make things good for the rest of the country and whatnot, instead of just the leader or whatnot. Like a one-party system is like North Korea, um, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, not Japan, Egypt. Like for the longest time, it quickly becomes a dictatorship and authoritarian government. So no, it's not better to have a one-party state, and it just that a one-party state is not democratic at all. You need to have multiple parties in order for it to be democratic, because the different parties bring upon different viewpoints. If you have one party, it's going to be the same viewpoint for as long as they're in office. Um, Although the electoral age artificial surveillance. Official only wrongdoers. Disagree. Not a strong disagree, but a disagree. Because there are so part of it's there's so many laws and stipulations that are in place that you do not know. Sometimes you seriously don't know if you're breaking the law or not when you do something. There is also points where if they have no reason to look at you, they should not have access to your information. Because a big part of this, I believe, is with there was something that happened recently that's a big leak. I don't remember the name of it. Philip DeFranco talked about it. I'll try and post the link somewhere if I can find it. That leaked a ton of information that was governmentally held, and it was on stuff of people who weren't terrorists, of people who weren't drug dealers, of people who weren't committing crimes, of just everyday people, like social security numbers, phone numbers, names, maiden names, passport info, all this sort of stuff that was just out there. And it's like, as people should always be worried that their government is up to no good. It's the same question. It's essentially a part of the same question of questioning authority. You always question the motives of those in power, because if they gain access, they could easily use that information, especially if the government gets extremely corrupt to a point of they can extort you, they can use that information to torture and trick you. So it's definitely wrongdoers are not the only ones that need to be worried. Uh, Yes, death penalty should be an option for the most serious of crimes. One, because I do not want my taxpayer money to be going towards serial killers. Do I think they should also suffer in their death? Oh, hell yes. They should. Like, death is an easy way out, but it's also in society a good way to get rid of a threat. Um, and this should be used for people like serial killers, for extreme terrorists, for um, murderers, for rapists, for pedophiles, for certain things that just make a nuisance to society. And this also brings in question is this punishment exceeding the crime? If and it also brings up with the eye for an eye argument. If you kill someone, I kill you. That's a big thing. Like that's how like with gangs and the mafia. It's like if you kill one of mine, I'll kill two of yours. If you kill two of mine, I'll kill three of yours. And it's just sitting here like the more how many deaths does it bring up past just what the criminal did and to what the retaliation is? Like, if will anybody retaliate if that person dies? Will anyone? There's so much things that you need to bring up and things you need to discuss, but I believe the death penalty should still exist, should still be here, and it is. It is for the most extreme cases, and it's not like the people are killed instantly. There is a massive wait line for the chair. There is a massive wait line on death row. That green mile is way longer than a mile. So it's sitting here like they have time to make sure they have the right person, and you should absolutely have all evidence and have it be without a reasonable doubt that you have the person before they die. So there's a lot more to discuss than just should it be there and should it not. So I'm going to kind of lower my agree status a little bit to only agree and not strongly agree. Where are we sitting in this? Okay, I'm still recording. I just wanted to make sure I'm still recording. In a civilized society, one must always be disagree. This is the fluctuation of power. A good leader is a good follower because you should be able to listen to the people. That's why we have aspects of a democratic society, to kind of police our government, to make like they are the government to the people, not the government for the government, not a dictatorship, not an authoritarianist government. Like you, as much as you kind of make laws and regulations and whatnot of the people, you are also for the people, and they make regulations and laws of you and determine anything you sign into law if it's good or not and whatnot. And there's some, and again, it's not a perfect system, and it probably will never will be, but it's a checks and balances system. The people should be able to um order you. It's not just it's it's just not just obey me and you and everything's good. You need to be as much of a follower as you are a leader. Abstract art doesn't represent anything. Shouldn't be considered art. No, abstract art is it's abstract. Like you never know what the artist was thinking. I mean, it could have a deeper meaning than just a piece of trash sitting on a cube. It could have so much more meaning in so many different ways to look at it. There are cases of burnings of art because they felt it had no meaning, but in reality, it was just a different cultural aspect of it. So no, art is art. It doesn't matter how abstract it is still art. Whether or not you should pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for it or see it in an art museum is a different question. But it's still art. Criminal justice should not be. It should be more important. Disagree. Rehabilitation, especially those convicted of drug charges and drug convictions, especially users, um, should be rehabilitated. Otherwise, they are just going to keep doing it over and over and over and over again. If you can rehabilitate them successfully, then it is better than the punishment. Some people that there's no way that they'll be able to be rehabilitated, like serial killers, most pedophiles. I don't even really think a pedophile can be rehabilitated. Like there's aspects that people think, but it's just some ways the mind is wired. You cannot rehabilitate that. With things like drugs, you can get them off drugs. You can get them working again. Like there'll be relapses, but it's something they brought on to themselves one way or another, and they can be rehabilitated. So rehabilitation is more important than the punishment. It's a waste of time to rehabilitate some criminals. Like I said, yes, like with pedophiles, serial killers, terrorists, it's just a waste of time to rehabilitate them. Some of them are so stuck in their ways, it's just a waste of money to put them in a rehabilitation center. With like people like serial killers, mass murderers, terrorists. Sometimes that chair is better than having them sit in prison. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Disagree. Oh, this is huge. This is huge because there are some things that we have always had in society, and that is not business. That is not manufactured goods. That is interpretation of that is art, the interpretation of it, in the ways we keep track of history, whether it's by song and dance, whether it's by a painting, whether it's by a video game, whether it's by a written book. It's art is way more important than what the hell I have using this video to talk to you. Like the video in itself is art. It can be considered art in one way or another. And this could also be considered a new way of writing, a new way for an author to get their viewpoint out and whatnot. Like the communication of information is far more important than the business or manufacturer of a good. It's way more important than that. like that that art will likely last for generations to come, whereas the like my computer is going to be irrelevant in another 2 years. It's not going to matter. It's just going to be replaced by something newer and something better. But that art is always going to stay there, especially if we preserve it. That book is always going to stay there, especially if we preserve it, or if we duplicate its words, if we remake it, if we do something more. The pen is mightier than the sword, or mightier than the machine. In the sense of we still have artwork from hundreds, if and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years ago that it's here today. We have it in museums. We look at it. We pay money to see it, and I will gladly go to a museum over a movie. I will gladly go to like at least when I have the money. Although movies are art too, so I can't exactly say that. Um, I would much rather put my money towards going to a movie, going to the museum, buying a book, than buying some stupid product online that could be absolutely useless. It's that information to me is more important than the physical object of buying something, of getting that object that I may or may not want as soon as I get it. You never know, but that information that I receive through writing or art will always be more valuable to me. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Ew. This is another controversial issue because I'm only going to agree simply because they are the bearer of children. They are um, they are the primary caregiver to a family, to their children, because biology. Um, like breast milk is the healthiest thing you can give an infant, and up until a certain age, even some toddlers still drink it, even though like you should wean them off of your boobs as they get older. But it just like you have to wean a calf off of its mother, so it's not solely dependent on the breast milk through its however many years, just like that. Oh god, just like that 8-year old in Game of Thrones. Good god, that kid should not be breastfeeding. Um, but that's the only reason I'm agreeing to this is because biologically, women are the caregivers of, and that's a majority of creatures. And there are very few, um, especially mammalian creatures, mammalians that are the primary caregivers of the family. Like you are moms are nature's caregiver. They are are basically what protect the child. They are what their primary food source is in nature. If we didn't have formula, there would be no other way to feed an infant if not the mother's breast. So just by that, they are should be their duty is to the family more than their career, and that's part of the problem we have with, like, back to the abortion issue, is many women do put a career in front of their family, and even in front of the idea of bearing a child, and they will much rather kill their child than risk their career in that sense of getting an abortion. Um, so it's very interesting. This may be my white male privileged viewpoint, but that's how I'm seeing it. So, however you interpret that, feel free to interpret it. Um, Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. This one's another very gray one because again, it depends on how they go about it. It really, really does. But I'm gonna agree because there are enough of them doing it unethically, like those who ship things to China and that could be dependent on child labor because their child labor laws are looser, or shipping it to Mexico for the same thing, or because they can make it cheaper because they can, for one reason or another, exploit the people who make it. So yeah, I'm just going to agree on that one. Just for that, because there are enough of them exploiting exploiting those resources. But I'm just confused by what they meant by explaining the plant genetic resources. Does that mean like the manufacturing plant? Does that mean like physical, like actual, like growing plants that are in the ground? It's just a very weird way to word that. I think I got that one right, but I'm not entirely sure. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Yes and no. I'm going to agree simply because society has a certain way that it works. That if you don't accept some parts of society, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be able to get a job. You're not going to be able to move on with your life. You're going to fall into a shit system of failure and poverty, and it sucks. That there's you have to comply with a lot of things in society in order to even get a leg in, even get a toe through the door. You have to accept certain things, but it's understandable, and it's understandable, and it's more of a respect and thing. And if you can find a way to bust through that door, guns blazing, not actual guns blazing, because that'd be bad. Um, but what I mean is, like, do like what Bill Gates did. He changed society. He made something so much more than he could have done at whatever company he would have worked for if he would have stayed in college. So it's very interesting. Sometimes society does stifle you more than it helps you. Oh, sweet, we're almost over. Astrology accurately explains many things. And astrology, that's like your zodiac and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because sometimes it amazes me how accurate a horoscope is and how much I see myself in that horoscope. But it's also kind of what they're meant for. Is to sometimes they are meant to be the most vague things on the fucking planet to make you be like, holy shit, I can see myself as that. Because I've read other horoscopes and I'm like, hey, that could be me, that could be me, that could be me. So it's no. You cannot be moral without being religious. No, you can totally be moral without being religious. Morals do not necessarily stem from your religion. They extend from society, from your parents, from how you were raised, and from your own personal beliefs and guidelines. There are plenty of religious people that have committed extreme atrocities. Like um, Hitler was religious. I think Stalin was religious. You had the Crusades. You had the entirety of the Middle Ages was just unethical and immoral authoritarianism from the church. So it's just sitting there like you being religious does not make you moral, does not make you a good person. It just gives you a system to believe in. Charity is better. Yes. Oh God, I like how they say it. If you got through that, okay, you'll find these propositions on religion to breeze. Oh, you are not. You are mocking me so much right now. Oh boy. Um. I mean, charity can help more than Social Security. Like if you volunteer at a soup kitchen, if you are one of those people that give money to people, or even if you just give food or something, it can help. Some people are naturally unlucky. And I am a proponent of karma and luck. And it's not necessarily like, oh, like it changes all the time. It's not like have never met one person who all through their life everything unlucky happens. There are definitely some people who have years of just unlucky things. Like I have a friend on Facebook who two of his relatives died within the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it's sitting here like sometimes you just have unlucky goes. Some people have more luck than others. Disagree. Honestly, you don't need religious values. Like I think you need to instill values in a kid, but they don't need to be religious. They really don't. Um, and if you really think that you should, um, you should, oh God, what is my brain trying to say? You should put them in a private school under that religion. And that's all I have to say. Public schools are not a place to instill one specific religion. You should learn about every religion, but you should not be specific to one in whatever class is teaching it. Sex outside of marriage is immoral? No, because marriage is a social construct. It really, really is. And it is more of a contract than anything. And as long as you have safe sex, as long as both are consensual, as long as you understand repercussions, if there's a child that ends out of it, then just be careful, be safe, be smart, have as much sex as you want. Same-sex couple in a stable family should not be excluded from the possibility of child. Strongly agree. They are perfectly capable parents as long as they like it says stable relationship. Loving that changes from person to person and whatnot. But as long as they are stable, as long as they are not abusive, they should be able to adopt a child. Um, yeah, porn. As long as it's not damaging anybody, as long as it's safe, as long as it's consent. I don't care, and if people want to make porn, I don't care as long as it's not harming. What goes in a private bedroom between consultants yeah. The state should not regulate how you have sex. Should not regulate who you have sex with. Should not regulate anything that goes on in the bedroom as long as it's consensual. As long as it's between two consenting adults. As long as it's not like, and if it, as long as it's not physically harming anybody, like to a point of dehabilitation. It should it should be. I don't personally care what the hell anyone does in the bedroom. No one can feel naturally homosexual. No, homosexuality is a natural occurrence, and we have seen it in several different species, from giraffes to dolphins to dogs to even cows. There are instances of homosexuality. So it can be natural. It is natural. You don't necessarily have a choice. Some people choose to be, but not most don't. Openness about sex has gone too far. I'm going to slightly disagree because there are some things that probably shouldn't be said, like completely publicly outside of an educational point. Like I personally don't care how hard you went at it last night. I really don't. I don't need to know these details. And no one, and whatever happened in bed the other night should not be what the public needs. It's it's just, but like the openness about it, the openness to talk about it, the openness to educate it, the openness to have that discussion is perfectly fine with me. And kids should know what it is. Abstinence is just a way to get someone pregnant early. All right. Some of these topics I probably did not go deep enough on. Well, sex joke. But others should definitely not go. Uh, uh, oh, son of a bitch. Where is my brain? Where is my brain? Oh, God. Where's my brain Oh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, some of these I should go in more depth on, but that's a video in itself. Oh, wow. So, alright. So, left and right, we recognize this essentially in an economic line. It's fine as far as it goes. We can show, for example, Stalin, Mao Zedong, Pol Pot with their commitment on the hard left, socialists like Mahatma Gandhi and Robert Mugabe would occupy a less extreme leftist position. Margaret Thatcher would be well over to the right, but further still would be someone like ultimate free market or general bid. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Deals with economics, but the social dimension is also important in politics. So I'm a little bit authoritarian leaning, but overall I'm very moderate in terms of authoritarian versus libertarian, but I'm also very far right leaning libertarian. So that's interesting. Um so yeah, but overall I'm more on the left than I am anything. I'm more in the middle on with the left and right issues. That's very interesting. At least according to this survey. Health and economic decisions are important factors to prepare. Okay, so there we go. So like, there's Hitler, Stalin, Thatcher, Friedman, Gandhi, so on and so forth. So that this is very interesting. Um, so see where I sit on this. Neocons and neolibs. What? Okay. Give me a second on that. I'm staying on this so you can read it. Feel free if you want to. Pause the video if you need to. Oh, okay. This is important. Right, that sentence right there is very important because authoritarianism is not necessarily right wing. That's why they had the system of where they have because you could have it's more like authoritarianism and libertarian or authoritarian and libertarian are opposites more than conservatism and than libertarian. That makes sense. So, okay. Neoconservatives are global assertion. Ah, this is interesting. Ah, so my political compass is. Oh, wow. I'm actually kind of surprised by that. Okay, so I'm like a left, kind of a left, still kind of left center. But left center libertarian on that. Definitely not authoritarian. All right. Nice caricatures. Interesting. Oh, so this is more from European. I personally don't care. Alright, so certificate page. People know my name by now, so I didn't. Yeah. Right. Okay. Those are very funny. There's Fidel Castro. I thought he'd be more authoritarian. God, I wish I could. I'm totally gonna print this out though. That red dot right, that is me. Gandhi looks evil. Yes, because there's what I was talking about with Stalin. I really wish they had better handwriting, or not better handwriting, but easier to read handwriting. Okay, so yeah, Donald, that makes sense. Donald Trump is more authoritarian, but he's closer to the middle than I thought they would have put him. That's interesting. Really, they put Hillary Clinton further to the right than Donald Trump, and further up. So that's interesting, or further down. Of course, Mussolini stood right there. Hmm. This is interesting. Don't necessarily know who that is. There's Jill Stein. Okay. Do they have who I voted for? I would have voted for Bernie in the election. That actually makes sense where they've put him. And with what? So that's interesting. Oh, there's Gary Johnson. Because I voted for Gary Johnson. So that I guess he's kind of like on the literally just opposite side of me on the list. So that's why I viewed a lot of things similarly. Interesting. I'm totally gonna download this and save it for later. Download. So that is this. If you want, I will leave the link in the comments below to get this. But this is my political compass. So feel free to take it. Feel free to let me know what you think. I'm going to leave this video up as a whole. And I'm pretty sure that was 2.5 hours or close to it of talking about politics. So I am tired. I have work in the morning, so I need to go to bed. Because that took a lot longer than I anticipated. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Let me know where you sit on the political compass, and feel free to also, like, if you want to print it out and put a dot where you are and tweet it at me, let me know, and I will gladly retweet it and talk about it and whatnot. But this is very interesting to see what my political compass is. I will try and get it uploaded, if not tomorrow, then Tuesday. No, Monday, because today's Friday. No, Sunday. I can get it uploaded. God, I can but I'll try and get it uploaded Sunday at the latest. I just had it since I have work tomorrow. Yo, God, I need to go to bed. I'm gonna do very minimal editing, if any, since this is a long video. Maybe just stuff that'll take out some of the awkward pauses, but I'll probably, like I said, just upload it as is, minus the end and the beginning, because that's just me clicking on this. Okay, good. I'm starting to ramble. I need to go to bed. Alright, good night, guys. Let me know what you got. Let me know down in the comments. Let me know what you think. And let me know what some of your political viewpoints are. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And I will see you guys later.